degree to which the country has been affected and damaged. And thus our thoughts continue to be with the victims of this terrible disaster, with the tens of thousands of families whose houses were washed away by the floods, with the people, the women and children that have to live out in the open without protection. You said 16 million children are affected and have been affected by these devastating floods. Many still are affected by it, suffering from diseases like cholera and malaria now. And it will take a very long time in order to get a closer idea, a better idea of the damage done to the infrastructure. The federal government has already pledged assistance in the amount of 50 million euro for humanitarian assistance, but also for the reconstruction of infrastructure. And given the dramatic degree of human suffering, we now pledge another 10 million euro to provide emergency medical care and services, especially for children and youth. The floods in Pakistan have once again been a powerful reminder to the world at large, not only to Pakistan, but to the world at large, a powerful reminder of the dramatic consequences that the climate crisis has on all our continents. Pakistan, as one of the hardest hit countries in the world, pays a high price for global CO2 emissions. And this is why we will work with all our energy at the COP27 in Egypt to achieve a fair distribution of the cost of climate change, adaptation, and above all, the issue of loss and damage will be put on the agenda. Russia's illegal war of aggression against Ukraine also has dramatic global impact. Though the battlefield may lie in Europe, the ramifications of this war is felt across the globe, not only because of the massive increase in the price of food and energy, but also because this blatant violation of the UN Charter has made the world, for each and every one of us, for each and every country, less secure. This is why next week every vote counts in the UN General Assembly. It will be a resolution on the illegal annexation by Russia of territory in Ukraine. The intention is to impress upon Russia that these territories belong to Ukraine. No one must be allowed to call into question the sovereignty of a country, and particularly not through the use of violence. In these difficult times, the good cooperation between Germany and Pakistan, the fact that we are working together to find solutions to global problems and that we can rely on each other bilaterally is even more valuable. Germany is already Pakistan's most important trading partner in the European Union. One strategic consequence we've drawn from Russia's war of aggression is that we intend to diversify our relations in the economic sphere. Thus, we also talk today about how we can further improve conditions for investments by German companies in Pakistan, in particular with an eye to infrastructure projects, in particular when it comes to expanding the use of renewables, green technology, not only in the area of electricity, but also expanding green industry. You pointed out once again, and I think it's very important for us to talk about this openly and honestly, that especially as far as the major infrastructure projects are concerned, others will fill the gap that results from others not stepping in. Pakistan plays a very important part for stability in the region, in particular as regards Afghanistan. Without you as a partner at our side, it would not have been possible for us to get so many Afghans out of the country. But together we've succeeded in evacuating tens of thousands of Afghans, allowing them to leave their country and to travel safely to Germany. And I would like to use this opportunity to once again thank you for this here and now in Berlin. Unfortunately, this does not mean that this process of getting the people out of the country has been running smoothly. Recently, it has faltered. We still have many people blocked in Afghanistan whom we had pledged to accept in Germany. Thus, we also talked today about how we can make it possible for these people to leave their country. It is clear that Pakistan can continue to rely on our support. Every individual whom we pledge to accept into Germany and who is allowed to enter Pakistan will travel on to Germany. We have increased the staff at our embassy. My visit, however short it may have been, was used to provide the logisticals and organizational issues and to discuss them with Pakistan. Finally, we also talked today about the situation in another neighboring country of Pakistan, Iran, that is. For more than 3 weeks, all over the country, brave women and men have been demonstrating for their rights, for peace, for their freedoms, as have many students. The regime responded through death and the use of violence. As I watch, often late in the evening, sometimes during the night, as I watch the many videos on the internet showing the relentless brutality with which a crackdown takes place on women, men, students and children, I think that strikes each and every one of us to the core, not only me as a foreign minister, me as a mother, others as a father. It's really hard to imagine what this is like, but think, being at home, feeling like, well, being a mother, you see your children, and then thinking of other mothers waiting at home for their daughters or sons to return from these demonstrations, not knowing whether they will return, whether they will be imprisoned. This is something we find very hard to grasp. Living in a democracy, we find it hard to understand what is happening. At the same time, we believe this is a commitment and a duty of ours to keep a watchful eye on what is happening there, especially as Iran is trying to block the internet. I've received many messages via the social media from people in Iran, people who have asked me to transmit and broadcast the voices of these brave people as someone who lives outside the country. And thus, I state here loud and clear, loudly and clearly at this press conference, we are not looking away. We won't look away when in the most brutal fashion, peaceful demonstrators, teenagers, children are being bludgeoned, are being hijacked, are being taken away and imprisoned. We will not relent. We will not waver in our solidarity with these brave women and men. No matter how many guns and bludgeons are being used, this generation, these young people have made it very clear they want their voices to be heard, and they will not stop speaking out. Thus, we will continue to also be the voice of these people. We are raising our voices, we the politicians, in the United Nations, in the Human Rights Council, as we have done these days. And we also raise our voice to the Iranian ambassador, whom we have already summoned twice. And we also take action against those who are responsible for the brutal repression, using the means that we have at our disposal. On the one hand, we plan to impose additional sanctions, and we're working with France together at the European level, and these sanctions are to come on top of those that have already been imposed. 4 sanctions systems with a total of 550 listings of units or institutions or individuals in Iran. This is what we have done and are doing at the European level these days. When the next Council meeting takes place, we will hopefully take the respective decisions. And this means that those responsible for the brutal repression will have to face up and to accept the responsibility for those deeds. These people will not be allowed to enter the European Union. Their assets in the European Union will be frozen. Dear Bilawal, no matter how tough the issues we have discussed and spoken about today, in your region of the world and in my part of the world, I am immensely grateful to you for having visited me in these difficult times. Because these days, more than ever, it is important that we stay in touch, that we talk to each other across regions, and Pakistan can continue to rely on our solidarity, especially with an eye to the terrible impact of the floods in your country. And I look forward to continuing the talks and the exchange of views with you. I wish you all the best for the millions of victims of the floods in Pakistan, and thank you for having come to Berlin today.
Thank you. I am delighted to be in the beautiful and historic city of Berlin, and I thank you for your gracious hospitality and for your invitation. Madam Foreign Minister and I picked up the thread of our conversation where it was left off in Pakistan in June 2022. The Foreign Minister and I had discussed bilateral issues and had detailed exchanges on regional and international developments of mutual interest, but most importantly, the climate catastrophe of epic proportions that we're experiencing back home in Pakistan. Given Germany's important position as the driving engine of European economies and politics, our bilateral relations assume crucial significance. Our relations continue to grow from strength to strength. Last year was special as we celebrated the 70 years of our diplomatic relations between our two countries. Global and regional developments warrant an even closer partnership to successfully address the growing challenges and seek enduring solutions for global peace and security. Most of all, decades of goodwill and cooperation between our two countries must be translated into synergetic partnerships for the benefit of our two people. Since we last met and since we last spoke, the ground realities in my country have fundamentally shifted. To communicate what we have been going through during this climate catastrophe is very difficult to put into words. The words monsoons, the words floods, pale in comparison to the devastation that we are experiencing. We had a weather event of biblical proportions. We've heard of the story of Noah's floods, where it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. Well, in Pakistan, our monster monsoon started in mid-June and continued and continued and continued until the end of August. And when the rains finally stopped, a 100-kilometer lake formed in the middle of my country, leaving one-third of the landmass of my country underwater, more than the entire landmass of Great Britain underwater. 1 in 7 people, 1 in 7 of my population, 33 million people affected, of which 16 million, as I mentioned, are children. 600,000 are pregnant women waiting to give birth under the open sky. 1,700 people have passed away so far, a third of which are children. The climate devastation has left more than 1 million houses destroyed, 4.3 million acres of standing crop underwater. The UN Health Organization, World Health Organization, has warned of a second catastrophe in the form of a health catastrophe with waterborne diseases spreading at epidemic proportions. We have concerns about food security following the flood damage, and then in addition to that, the economic consequences of this tragedy is already being felt and will continue to get worse if we're unable to address it. We're incredibly grateful to the German people, to the German government, to yourself for the support, the assistance that you've given so far, but Madam Foreign Minister, particularly given your leadership on the topic of climate change, I requested today your assistance and leadership on this issue, because I want to be able to get justice for my people. As the United Nations Secretary General said, it is not a question about charity, it's a question of justice. Pakistan produces less than 1% of the global carbon footprint, 0.8%. But we are amongst the 10 most climate-stressed countries on the planet. And that surely is unfair, that these 33 million people are currently paying in the form of their lives, in the form of their livelihoods, for the consequences of climate change that are a result of global action. And I hope that the solution of this global problem is also collective, is also global, because we too aspire to build back in a greener manner, in a more climate resilient manner, in a manner that has positive implications for our environment, that allows us to adapt, to mitigate, to transition for the challenging times to come. And your leadership and support would be very much appreciated during this phase. Frankly, Pakistan needs its own green revolution and green politics. My visit to Germany builds on successful exchanges that we've been having over the recent months, not only at our level, whether it is your visit to Pakistan or our phone conversations, but we've also had the various ministers, climate change, commerce, Minister of State, having visited Germany earlier, and I am building on much of that work. I am confident that the mutual desire to deepen our bilateral relations would prove to be a win-win for both our countries. We had good discussions on ways to enhance our collaboration in trade and investment, in higher education, technology, and people-to-people exchanges. We have a significant number of Pakistani community in Germany, and in addition to the positively contributing to German society, is also a strong bridge between our two countries. Similarly, Germany is a popular destination for our students to pursue higher educational studies, and we must work together to facilitate and create more opportunities for such engagement. Germany is one of our largest trading partners in Europe, and our trade has registered an increase in recent years. The GSP Plus status has also positively contributed, as it has proved to be mutually beneficial undertaking, and we count on your continued support for the renewal of the GPS Plus status for Pakistan. We also discussed the establishment of a formal Pakistan-Germany Chamber of Commerce in Pakistan, which would be vital stepping stone to materialize the envisioned economic engagement. Our discussion on regional issues were also useful. We remain concerned over the ongoing war in Ukraine and continue to emphasize the necessity of dialogue and diplomacy to settle this conflict. As a gesture of solidarity, despite our own economic difficulties, despite the fact that Pakistan is largely an aid-receiving country, and there are two countries that we make an exception for. We provide humanitarian assistance to the people of Afghanistan in their time of difficulty, and we provided humanitarian assistance to the people of Ukraine in the time of difficulty. On the issue of Afghanistan, I would like to highlight the grave humanitarian situation being faced by 40 million Afghani people. The international community needs to work together to help the people of Afghanistan avoid a complete and utter economic collapse and the subsequent repercussions of such devastation, which would include an exodus of refugees and an impact on law and order and stability in my region, but also, heaven forbid, internationally. While at the same time, it is also our hope that the Afghan authorities would be responsive to the expectations of the Afghan community regarding respect for human rights, inclusivity, and to take effective actions against terrorism. Afghanistan, like Ukraine, needs the international community's support. And as a responsible country on the international stage, Pakistan facilitated the evacuation of 90,000 people from 42 different countries from Afghanistan in 3 phases of humanitarian safe passage after the 15th of August 2021. We had facilitated requests from Germany also and hope to be of further assistance. At the end, I'd like to highlight, Madam Foreign Minister, the grave human rights violations being committed in occupied Jammu and Kashmir and the risks it poses for regional peace and stability. I reiterate that peace in South Asia would not be possible without the peaceful resolution of the Jammu and Kashmir dispute, in accordance with the UN resolutions, in accordance with international law, and with respect to international institutions, their resolutions and their frameworks, and in accordance with the wishes of the Kashmiri people. I conclude by thanking the Foreign Minister for her invitation, and I'd like to invite her once again to visit Pakistan at her earliest convenience. I am confident that our interactions in Berlin would help to further deepen and strengthen existing ties between our two countries. I thank you.